Hello, this is Max Drake. I just want to talk about code editors, and I want to give an explanation of why I've gone to doing some things. I actually have got Visual Studio Community on mine, but I find it big and cumbersome and quite useless. I normally actually just use Notepad++, and that is what I'm just going to demonstrate through here. What I started off doing was there was COVID data on New Zealand data that I was trying to create a website and do a map about all of these things. I started to find that I actually had to web scrape because they didn't have an API that I could use. So I ended up using Excel to actually go through, and it went through and scraped certain tables and brought the data in. I then mapped it across inside Excel onto a column so that I could actually just copy that column, go into Notepad++ and paste that in, and then if I just did a file, save as new .html, and I save it as that, you'll see that it actually reformats it so that it actually recognizes it, and it shows the different tags that are going through. So once I'd actually got it into that point there, because it's just basically HTML, I could go through. Now I'm just going to go through into here where it is, and if I actually just copy the path, the internet path through there, and go and open up my browser, I can see that there. So it'll actually just render that because it's HTML, so it just renders to the web page, not a problem at all. So I could see errors in here. So what I can actually do is that I could split my screen into two. I could go through at some point in here and type in XTTT and go save into there, rewind into there, it would refresh and it would show that change through there. So that was getting a bit of a nuisance because I would then actually have to start building the website a bit more. Again, I've got to save that and I've got to refresh that and it comes all the way through. But it was a bit of a nuisance switching between all of these things all of the time. So I was hopping between Notepad++, I was hopping between the browser, and I was hopping between Excel to actually do it. But I finally built a page and that was fine, and now I just do a refresh each time and I can do it. Now once I've got it into here, I actually just copy that code and I paste it over to my server. Now I paste it over to my server into there so that with this one here, because I'm actually just going to a file, I can't share it with anybody else unless I copy that file and post it to them or email it to them. But if I've actually got it on my web server, on my web page, I can send somebody a link, and so anybody can link that onto there and they can open that up. So it's making it accessible to the rest of the world. But the whole process was quite tedious. But as I was actually viewing things, one of the things that I came across was a thing called Visual Studio Code. Now, if I go into Visual Studio Code and I go File, Open Folder, and I go into that folder, this that I'm just doing this pop-up through here, and just say Select Folder, it'll now show me all of the, which one's that? Don't save. Sorry, I don't know what's happened here. We just go File, Open Folder, and we were going into Screenshots. And when we're in Screenshots, we just select that folder. No, don't save. We'll then come into here, and if we just go to the bottom, there's my new one there, and there's my code there. Now, one of the things about this code that I've got straight away there is that inside Visual Studio Code, now I'm just going to take Notepad++, that's a free. Visual Studio Code is free as well. I did have the whole Visual Studio Community, but it's big and cumbersome. This one, I saw a lot of videos where people were using this, and I couldn't understand why. Then, when I actually came into the code, one of the things you can do in here is that you can get extensions enabled, and one of the ones is one called Live Server. So if I just right click inside the code, open with Live Server, and it opens a server with that code there straight away. So if I just drag that off to the side, I just drag that up there. If I just go in, it's also got this nice thing like Sublime. If I just go into there and go COVID-19 VVVV and just do a save there, that automatically updates. So it's very good to do a quick refresh to see if your code's actually working. So I think I've got a space there, save, and it brings it back there straight away. So that was a wonderful thing to use, the thing. As I started to develop things, I started to link to API so that I could pull the data down, and I started to build some stuff there. Then I started to do these front-end and back-end things. So I started to do things like running Node.js and running React. And the reason why I was a bit reticent about doing that before, but I hadn't. Now, another little thing that I just want to highlight through here that you see them doing it is if I just go through and do an H1 tag here, H1 through there, then I actually have to go through and close that H1 tag one there. So I actually have to go H1 and close. So I have to type all of those through there. Now, you in Notepad++, they are plugins and things, but I haven't been using them. In Video Studio Code, you've got embedded in it a thing called Emmet, which is H1, and as soon as I close that tag, it does the closing tag for me. If I actually do an open bracket, it does the closing bracket for me. If I do a square bracket, it does the same, and the same with that, and the same with quote marks. So straight away, I've got half the thing already done. So this is a thing called Emmet, which is sort of snippets. And also inside here, you can actually get snippets, which is basically short form information that if you type 3 or 4 letters in, it then gives you a bit of boilerplate through there so that you can quickly do that. Now, with some of the snippets, you can build your own as well. So that's quite a fast thing to do. Now, I'm not too sure whether the Notepad++ has a lot of those things or not. I've never used it that way, but with the coding that I'm doing more and more coding, and I'm finding this is quite useful. Another thing that it actually has is it has a terminal in here. So if I'm in Notepad++ and I need a terminal, I've just got to go and open up a terminal, to either go into here and go command and prompt and get one through there, or another quick way of getting a command prompt, which I find an absolute pleasure to use. If I wanted one in this directory and I wanted a command prompt, instead of actually going to that command prompt and trying to cd into a directory, you select inside the browser the actual link to the web page and type in cmd, and it will open up a command prompt inside that actual directory that you want. So there's no CDing to actually bounce around and remember all the DOS commands for those. So that's a really nice, handy thing to do. I'm finding using Visual Studio Code quite a handy thing to do. So it actually has a lot of positives. It's got a debug on it. I haven't been using that too much just because I've been copying a lot of code and haven't been really getting down to nitty gritty. It's got a link through to the GitHub, which is quite a handy thing to actually do there. And I just want to point out another one. Now, I would normally just use Notepad++. The other program that I use a bit is Python. And inside Python, I'd actually use this PyCharm, and this is done by JetBrains, and there's a community version which you can get for free, though that is a bit like Visual Studio Code, but it's a bit simpler. But one of the things with this, inside Visual Studio Code, you can actually get Python add-ons so that I can actually get a whole load of Python stuff to actually get it to run in here as well. So that's brilliant as well from that point of view. So for the two programs that I'm actually using, this works quite well. And again, that PyCharm's free to use, and there are other ones there. The other one that I actually just found out, and this is, I think I've just changed it to CC, is called Code Sandbox. Now, this is an online one where you can create code and then just save it to your GitHub, or so if I wanted to do a boilerplate React program through here, or in fact, you could most probably just do an HTML one, it's going to go around way through. Now, if you see with the Visual Code, when I was actually doing the code, it was also opening up a server, a local host server in my browser. Inside the Code Sandbox, it's actually got the browser inbuilt inside the thing itself. So if you actually just go and take something out there, it automatically updates there as well. There is a slight irritating thing here. If I actually just do an H1 tag there, and I don't close it off, you see it starts erroring. It starts saying, oh, it's undetermined. No, it's actually saying it's JSX, not HTML, because this is inside the React app. But it doesn't really matter. What it's saying is there's an error, and it's not going to go away until I actually do the closing tag. And then it will go away. There's still a bit of a squiggly line here because it actually wants something inside those tags. Then it says, yeah, we accept that. Thank you very much indeed. So it's still doing a layer editing. So it's doing a bit of your code editing and stuff like that. So that's another useful tool to actually do. So I just really want to go back one step and just say I've done a lot of videos. I do some videos on BIM and data capture, taking things out of design models and giving them to facilities managers and displaying it in a way that they can actually understand that data. There's some videos on productivity tools, but most of the people who come onto my site are actually coming through to look at the GlideApps. Now, GlideApps are basically a mobile phone app that you can actually create using a back end of a Google Sheet. Now, there is a free tier on it that you can use, and I think you'll have 500 lines of data or something like that, which is more than that if we quote once. I've made defects list apps where you email people as soon as you find a defect and it gets sent all over the place. I've done timesheet apps. I've done finance apps where I've actually got a log of all of my spendings that I actually do. I've got a reservation restaurant app and things like that. I find a lot of people coming through here. So a lot of people are not coders, but they actually want to do things. So this is why I'm actually making this one on code editors, because what do you use? I didn't realize that this was such a powerful thing. It looks intimidating to begin with, but in fact, if you use it on its basically simple point, it's actually a brilliant tool to use. And so I wish somebody had told me about it earlier. Anyway, I hope that's been of interest to you. Thank you very much for watching. If you found it handy, can you give a thumbs up, please? Thank you very much.